All right, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. First show, first video of the new year. Glenn Stein, Realty Executives here, broker owner. Hope you're doing well. Located on 466 next to the Hampton Inn, across the street from Laurel Manor. That's where we're located in the Villages. Also, some satellite offices in Wildwood. Getting another satellite office in the Coleman area as well for the southern reaches, the southern part of the Villages, south of 44. Obviously the Villages has grown tremendously. So if you haven't been here in a while, lots of growth along the turnpike south of 44. Lots of really pretty communities and villages. Stretching from Fenny to the Luna and on the south of 44, but also north of 44, where you can be in the Pine Hills area or along 466A or between the sixes, closer to Sumter Landing. And of course, I remember, I've connected with someone recently. I don't know who it was, but it was actually somebody I've known for many years that's very familiar with the Villages. And we were kind of reminiscing how 466 was the southern end of the Villages, so lots of growth there. And Villages is not for everybody, but a lot of people really enjoy the lifestyle. They love all the activities that the Villages has to offer, and obviously, there's a lot of surrounding areas. A lot of people decide they want to live in maybe a Stonecrest or Dale Webb Spruce Creek South, Orange Blossom Hills, Oxford, whatever. There's a lot of horse country, a lot of pretty areas. But today we're going to do a recap of what exactly happened in 2022 and a little bit of a prognostication as to what we're probably going to see in 2023. I don't have a crystal ball, but I've been studying this almost 3 years straight. We've been doing the show. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. That way you can get notified when we do have a new video and a new update as to what's going on. That would be absolutely fabulous. I'd love that. But what we're looking at here, we're going to be looking at at least four different charts and graphs today. I'm going to try to keep it as interesting as possible so you don't fall asleep in the middle of the video. We're going to be looking at the number of sales throughout 2022 and maybe a little bit of past history. We're going to look at the active number of properties in any given moment over the last couple of years. How long it's actually selling to sell a home in the Villages. So for the people that are thinking about selling, I think that's important. But also, sale price average, because a lot of people are wondering, okay, value is dropping, what's going on? I can tell you that, I hear the stories. I'm on the ground floor on this because I connect with a lot of my agents here in the Villages office, and we talk about what's going on with inventory. Yes, it's taking longer. We're also noticing that price per square foot has gone down as far as sold price per square foot. However, it's a lot more than what it was prior to 2020. Like prior to COVID, prices were a lot less. So price per square foot has jumped up, but it's settled down from what it was maybe 8 to 10 months ago. So that's pretty much the story. Inventory is still being light-ish, but as you can tell, look, over 300 homes on the market in the Villages MLS. I think we're at 305 right at the moment. It's still tight, but it's not that tight. There's still I think there's sufficient number of homes to actually look for if you're a buyer. And then on the rental side, because we do property management and rentals, really tight on the inventory side. I think we're getting one or two. I heard this recently, talked to my property manager earlier on this morning, and she said one or two should be coming on board. And maybe for availability later on in January. So if you're looking for a seasonal rental, you can call our office at 352-753-7500. That's something you can do. But let's jump into it. Let's look at what we're seeing here as far as charts, graphs. This particular chart here, what we're looking at is the historic sales in the Villages. How often, how many homes are selling on a monthly basis on MLS. And look, when we first started the year, January, February, March, were looking very similar to third, fourth quarter of last year. It looked like a continuation. Then, of course, interest rates jumped up. That was in the spring and March, and a lot of people just, that was kind of the beginning. I wouldn't say the beginning of the end, but the beginning of kind of a bull a bearish market, right? A little bit of a slowdown, or a lot of a slowdown, as you can tell by these numbers. 137 homes sold in June, 113, 118, 115, 97, 88, 95 to close out the year for the respective months. So the last time we saw 97, 88, 95 fourth quarter numbers in the villages on a monthly basis, look at this. We saw a little bit of that in 2017, January, February, and then in September, but we really saw a lot of it back in 2016. You're going to see after we watch this, so you're going to want to stay and watch, number one, the similarities between 2022 and 2016. And then we're also going to talk about what we're going to see in 2023 based on this. This is going to tell us a lot. So you're going to want to hang tight on it. So bear with me on this. So lots of comparisons here, 2022 to 2016. Now let's look at, now this is sales by month, and feel free to chime in if you have any comments on what you're seeing, if you're experiencing this, if you're in the villages, or you have any questions, just put that in the chat, whether this is going to be live. Obviously, we're doing this live, or you can do it later on because it's going to be posted. So either way is okay. So now let's look at the average number of listings, right? Doing this real time, average number of listings. So this tells us, okay, numbers have gone up, right? Because if we look at what happened, 2020 and then 2021, we've talked about this a lot. The peak of the market as far as inventory is 451. That was November of 2020. And then all of a sudden, inventory sales went through the roof and inventory went through the floor. And of course, we saw a low, which we actually, this doesn't even do it really justice because this is the average. There was a week, and I probably sometime in the middle of, it was probably in June of 2021, where we saw like upper 40s as far as number of listings available. But 83 was the low as far as the average number of listings available in the month of June. And then you look, and this is from 2021. Last year, I can't believe we're saying that, last year, 2022, 99, we broke 100 in February, and then we broke 200 in May, and then we broke 300 in November. Like in the same year, going from 99 to over 300. I don't think we've seen that. I don't think we've seen that kind of dramatic increase in inventory, but not surprising because interest rates going up, all of that type of thing. I also know, we saw less sales and the inventory go up. I think more of an impact in the villages because I think more people felt impacted with their, their pocketbook, their wallets, inflation affecting, pricing, but also the stock market crashing and, people feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't have as much in my retirement as I did. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. That was a real thing because interest rates, if you think about it, villages, 50% of the deals are typically cash, and half of those are, tremendous amount of money down. So probably less people felt comfortable doing something. And of course, prices going up during this time period. So this gives you an idea. Okay, this is, early part of this year, active number of listings really increasing from the spring in the hundreds to the summer in the 200s to the fall and winter over 300. And then it went down a little bit, in December. And then of course, now we're over 300. Okay. So that's super interesting. And if you look at it, lots of comparisons to 2016. I think we're going to see a lot of this. There's going to be a lot of, I think we're probably going to end up going over 400 at some point this year. I think it's going to take a little bit longer. I think it's going to be a slow climb in inventory. So, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so active number of listings. Let's look at days that it's how long is it taking, right? Like average days to sell, right? Going from time of listing to going under contract. If you look at let's start backwards, 2016 numbers, 87, 83, 68, 70, 66, 71, 76. It's kind of the cadence of what we saw in 2016. And now we're looking at, in 2022, 12, 14, 11, 11, 14, like quick. Things are selling, time from contract or time of list to going under contract a couple of weeks. Then in August, creeping up to 3 weeks. Then guess what? September, over a month. And guess what? December, even longer, 51 days. So massive jumps in a short period of time, going from 12 in January of 2022 to 51 in December, almost 2 months. Very similar, starting to creep up into 2016 numbers, not quite, looking more like 2017 or 2018 or 2019 numbers at this point. But it's going to be interesting to see if that trend continues. Okay. Now let's look at average sales price. Let's see what's happening with price. We looked at inventory. We looked at how many homes are selling. We looked at how long things are selling. Now let's look at price. Okay, let's look at sales price average. So I can tell you this right off the bat, and I think everybody knows this, that prices have gone down. Right? What if you take the typical model, whether it's an iris model or a gardenia or a courtyard villa, patio villa, whatever it is, whatever you've got, doesn't matter. It could be a premier, it could be on the golf course, it could be it could be on the lake, it could be a mobile home, whatever it is in the villages. And by the way, all of that exists here in the villages. All of that does, depending on the spot, depending on the village. If you think about it, if you put a home on the market back in the spring, and I think this is important for sellers to understand. You put your home on the market back in the spring, you would have gotten more money, obviously. So we're going to talk about let's look at 2022. And here's what's super deceiving about numbers, and I'm going to dive deeper into this in a minute. Look at the January 2022 average sales price: 357, 392, 409, 407, April 2022, and it keeps going up. And the peak is August of 439. And then now we're still at 406, average sales price in the villages on MLS, 400,000. Remember, a lot of people would remember this, back in 2016, average is about 240. Big increase, 240 to 406. What does this say? Right? What does this really say? It says a lot of things, right? It says a lot of things. What does it say? Okay, so first thing it says is that numbers can be deceiving. That's number one. But what it really is saying, let's kind of like look into the crystal ball, and that's where I want to go, because we just did the summary of 2022 and what's happened, with average sales price and how long it's taking. Inventory has gone up. We know that. I see inventory going up a little bit more. I see us hitting that 400 mark sometime this year. If I had to, I'm not going to say guess, because it's not a guess, but looking at these numbers, I would say we're going to see more of that. Inflation fears, we got some relatively good news last quarter from the Fed and the consumer price index and jobs reports, and a lot of some good news, not a lot, some good news. I think the stock market has settled down a little bit. Some people still feel like there's more to fall, and that being the case, I think that it's going to impact our market and the confidence people feel. Right, a year and a half ago, people felt really confident about buying a home. Now they're a little, well, I'm not so sure. So we've seen the opposite effect, meaning that being the case, we're going to see more homes on the market, staying on longer, an accumulation effect. So 400 seems reasonable. We're also going to see very similar numbers on the number of homes that are selling, very similar to what we saw in 2016. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think the numbers will pick up from what they were in November, December, because we're moving away from the election. There's a lot of things that have taken place there. I think there's a little bit more confidence in the market. That's what I'm getting from my realtors. So a little bit more, not like exuberance, but a little bit more security about buying. So I think that's going to help. So we're going to see a cadence of very similar to what we saw in 2016, meaning some sales are happening. It's never going to be like there's nothing happening, nothing's selling. No, less homes are selling. They're going to be selling for less than what they sold for in early part of 2022. Average sales price is going to drop a little bit. But in certain categories, and I think this is where we need to understand this, certain categories, we're going to see a little bit bigger drop. Not massive drop, a little bit more of a drop than what we've seen. So what we've seen, for instance, in patio homes, if you take a patio villa, 330, you could have gotten that all day long on a very nice patio villa. at the peak. Now it's probably in the 275, 280, with some exceptions on the high side if it's special, something, extra special on the inside. If it's less special and maybe not special at all, needs a lot of work, 265 makes a lot of sense. That gives you an idea of the same for pretty much every category, right? A drop off from the peak, definitely less than what we saw in the beginning part of 2022, and maybe a little bit of an adjustment down on pricing through 2023. A little bit, not like massive drop. So for the people that are thinking, okay, that gardenia on the golf course that was in, between the sixes is now going to be, $200,000 less than what it was in early 2022. I don't see that. $75,000 less. Yeah, I see that, right? Off the peak. So more properties on the market for sure. Average sales price coming down. I would anticipate that. And definitely, I think it's going to be a good market because it's going to be very fair and even for both sides. Because it wasn't fair and even for the buyers last couple of years. A little bit more fair. Now, sellers, yeah, I think you have to be realistic. If you don't have to sell, don't sell. There could be a better time to sell in 3 to 4 years, but time is always a factor. For buyers, maybe it will be better. If I had to pick the optimum time, like we're not worried about time, we're worried about buying something for the lowest price available. Maybe it's going to be later on this year, maybe. But at the same time, I love from the buyer aspect of getting both, having your cake and eating it too. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're really interested in buying now because you're freezing your tail off in Minnesota or wherever you are, right? Like it's cold, it's winter, and you're like, it's time for me to retire. I'm done. Like I want to relax and enjoy life. Like you can't put a price on that, and you're ready for it. I think it's a perfect opportunity to see what's available. The ratio between the number of buyers and the number of properties that are active right now, I think is a really favorable ratio for buyers, meaning you have less competition. Make an offer, see what happens, and be realistic in your expectations, right? Don't expect things are going to be like, we're not talking about fire sales. We're talking about, discounts and concessions, and maybe you can get that extra, you can get the fridge that the seller was really wanting as opposed to not, or, I think sellers are a little bit more amenable to closing when you want to close. So, and every case is different. So I think there's some flexibility there for sure. So with that, if you have questions, let us know. I think my prognostication is not a negative one for 2023, but it's not overly exuberant either. Because when you look at a lot of the different people, a lot of different economists, whether it's Lawrence Yun of the National Association of Realtors or Ivy Zelman, I feel like NAR is probably overly exuberant. And I think obviously as a realtor, we have the tendency to be overly optimistic because we're optimistic people and we've got a vested interest in not telling everybody it's going to collapse and all that kind of thing. But I also believe in not being overly pessimistic to be a pessimist. I believe in being a realist. And I think that's basically what we're going to see. So love to see your comments, hear your comments, questions. You can actually connect or email, text, call me, whatever you want to do. You can actually email me at glennstein@realtyexecutives.com, 2N Glenn. You could text me at 352-572-3796, or you can call me as well. And I answer the phone as long as I'm not busy. If I don't, leave a message and I'll return your call. Please subscribe. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll talk soon. We'll see you soon.